If you want to know everything there is to know about YJ axles, I suggest you keep watching. Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. Thanks for joining us. So like I said, we're going to learn about YJ axles today. You'd think I wouldn't be a real expert person to be talking about YJ axles, considering mine is still only on one axle, but I assure you, I know a few things and you might learn something as well. A brief rundown on Sherman. Okay, this is Mr. Peabody, this is Sherman. Okay, this Jeep was purchased wrecked from the vehicle auction. Beautiful rust-free, it's from Georgia. Now, what I have done is ditch the factory axles. Any YJ in the United States had a Dana 30 front axle and a Dana 35 rear axle. These things at best can handle 33-inch tires. Maybe 35s if you're gentle, but still, hear me out. So, the factory Dana 30 on a YJ is a CAD design, which is a central axle disconnect. So, well, this is not that. On any YJ, there is a casting here in the axle tube, and in there is a two-piece axle shaft. Okay, so in that casting, there's a collar, and that collar, when you put it in four-wheel drive, it's vacuum actuated, so that collar will slide over the other axle shaft, locking that whole two-piece deal together as one. As you may be thinking, yeah, that's a failure point for sure. So a lot of guys will, block that off, pull that shift mechanism out, and put in a one-piece axle shaft. That does help. That makes it quite a bit stronger. And the Dana 30s in these are a high pinion 30. We've talked about that if you've watched our TJ/LJ Dana 30 video, that they are nominally stronger with the pinion riding on that other side. So that's cool. In the back, of course, the Dana 35, that's a 27 spline, and it's a C-clip axle, and they're just not great. Now, I hear people just completely dogging on them, which I've had some success wheeling. I've never broken a Dana 35 in a YJ. Had several down at the Badlands, lockers, blah, blah, whatever. So it is what it is. Now, if you want big boy tires, such as our 37s here, you're gonna have to do an axle swap. YJs are a driver's side drop application, so it kind of narrows you down to Ford axles and maybe a Jeep axle or two. International Scouts, Chevys, and some Dodges are all generally a passenger side drop application, and that will not work for you. So Ford F-150 / Bronco axles in the mid to late 70s are where you want to be most generally. You can also look at some F-250 stuff, which we'll talk about in a second. But so the Fords that I mentioned are what they're called a radius arm suspension. So they have these what are called C's that are on the axle on each side, and they're either welded on or they're cast into. So the 78 and 79s, you do not want those, because those C's are cast into the housing. It's a part of the housing, and you can't just cut them off and do easy things with them. Sure, people have done it. I get it. You might have yourself, but you really want to go for the 77 and downs that have the weld-on wedges, which is what mine had. Okay, so I wanted to be spring under, so I did have to make some modifications, and let me show you what I did here. Okay, so this housing has been modified. There's webbing that came across the top here that had to get shaved and cut, and same at the bottom here. I think you can see, yeah, see that part of the housing continued on. So this got all modified, and it fits. We do not have to make any modifications to the leaf springs, i.e. outboarding. So you see a lot of guys that choose 1-ton stuff that's quite a bit wider. The diff is farther that way, so you have a wider pattern. So a lot of times guys will have to make brackets or buy brackets that set the leaf springs outboard of the frame so they can fit their axles. Now, what's nice about the late 70s Ford stuff is the pig is so much closer inboard than anything outside of that vintage. So it makes it nice to package here. So in this application, we could have very easily done a spring over where the spring sits over the axle, but and of course, low center of gravity, I didn't want to do that. Onto F250 axles. So you could get a Dana 44 F250 front axle, 8 lug, and that was a factory spring over application. That will bolt right in to these, which makes that pretty nice. Because you could find a truck, a 3/4 ton truck that would have a 60 full float in the back, bolt these things in more or less and go. Now in my case, again, modifications, and I went with a 9-inch that you can see back there is bare and empty and waiting for Elliot, who has been sick, to do gears and my locker and all that jazz. So let's look at a couple other things. Another axle that could work, which is kind of hard to find, maybe even more so than the Ford axles, is a Jeep Wagoneer, Grand Wagoneer front axle. Now this is going to be early 80s. It's a driver side drop application. It's spring under, but the width though is the kicker. The width is 58.8 inches, which that's about 2 inches narrower than your factory YJ, which is about 60.5. And then mine here with the full size, these are 65 inches. So this will allow me to get these bigger 37s, give them room to breathe, potentially not have any rubbing issues here. Just spaces that out, and we'll have that low center of gravity. It'll be wide and squatty, and in my opinion is going to look awesome. So in the back, you have quite a bit of options that you can go with. You can be spring under, you can be spring over. Of course, as you might remember, I'm stretched 2 inches in the front and 2 inches in the rear on this. If you went with a Dana 60 or 14 bolt or what have you, you'd probably have to do more than I did to beat the crap out of the tank. You're probably running a stretch tank and or some kind of fuel cell, because as you can see, there's not a lot of room for activities. So pretty much any rear axle, you can get a bracket kit like I did from Barnes, and you can make it work and rock pretty much whatever you want. Possibly a little too deep, I'm not sure, but we'll go a little farther. So YJ has a factory 5-on-4.5 bolt pattern. That Wagoneer axle I explained to you is actually a 6-on-5.5, so that's a 6 lug. Now, between Dodge, Ford, and Jeep, the Dana 44s, a lot of those outer knuckles and parts are interchangeable. So you can get that 6-lug axle and easily convert it to, a 5-on-5.5, which is what these Ford axles are. I've heard of people doing other stuff with it too, but that's actually very easy to take the Ford knuckle and put on there and all that jazz. So again, 5-on-5.5, 6-on-5.5, 5-on-4.5. There's a lot of numbers there, I apologize. And then of course you go with an 8-lug axle, you're generally gonna have an 8-on-6.5. But if you go with newer, like Super Duty stuff, that's an 8-on-170 millimeter. Are you confused yet? I almost forgot the gear ratios. So your YJs, the 6-cylinder generally would have gotten a 307 gear, which is a dog as soon as you put a lift kit on them. I've heard of some 355 gears being available in stock form. And then of course the 410 gears, which is what this had. To let you know, let the cat out of the bag here, we are going with 538s. Simply because I've got a 4-cylinder in here and 37s, and we want to be able to turn these things. That would be nice. All right, guys, sorry if there is some wind noise. We're just having awful weather here as of late. But that's really it for today, guys, to show you all about YJ axles. Hope you learned something. If you didn't, I apologize. Maybe we'll try again next time. So I want to thank you guys for watching. I appreciate your support, appreciate the things that your support helps me do, helps me build Jeeps. So I appreciate you subscribing and hitting the like button. It means a lot. Before I go, I am gonna say goodbye, but I'm gonna show you a sneak peek of what you're gonna see next week. Spoiler alert, Mr. Peabody content. We'll see you on the next one, guys. Take care. Are you guys ready for this? Here we come. What? How cool is that? We got a roller chassis for Mr. Peabody. We'll see you next week.